watching now. Today we're going to talk about Paul and what he did. And so we're going to start with reading the Bible story, and that's on the board here. Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 18. And Romans is one of the letters that Paul wrote to the Christian church in Rome. And he had been there and continued to go there. So he's writing to them about love. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. So that's one part that Paul wrote about love. So the Bible verse for this month comes from this section, Romans chapter 12, verse 10a from this letter. Love each other like the members of your family. And then our faith word is love, a closeness and connection that we feel with God and others. And then here's another writing from Paul about love. And this is one of the best known. It's 1 Corinthians, a letter he wrote to the church in Corinth. And it's chapter 13, and this is verses 4 through 8 and 13. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not want what belongs to others. It does not brag, it is not proud. It is not rude. It does not look out for its own interests. It does not easily become angry. It does not keep track of other people's wrongs. Love is not happy with evil. It is full of joy when the truth is spoken. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It never gives up. Love never fails. The three most important things to have are faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of them is love. Now, just so you know, we always have to work on loving others. It doesn't end, so it's something that we all work on. So I wonder, how do you think a person who loves you should treat you? Why do you think it's hard sometimes to love, even when you want to? How can you respond in kind ways to those we disagree with? So in the Wonder Box, there's something in there. So here's a heart, because we often use a heart to represent love. I'd like to talk about who wrote all these books and letters in the New Testament. And on the video it has these same pages, and I'm just briefly going to go through, but it helps to know who wrote all these, who were they? So they weren't all written by just the 12 apostles. or the 12 disciples that Jesus chose, they were also written by early Christian disciples. So the New Testament starts with the 4 Gospels, and they tell the story of Jesus. So Matthew was written by Matthew the Apostle. Mark was written by Mark. He was a cousin of Barnabas, a friend of Peter and Paul, but he wasn't an apostle. He also wrote about Jesus' life. Luke was a doctor, not an apostle. He went on missionary journeys with Paul, and he wrote about Jesus. John was one of the apostles, a close friend of Jesus, brother of James, son of Zebedee, the fisherman. A gospel tells who Jesus really is and his purpose. So the 4 Gospels the New Testament starts with tell about the life of Jesus. The next book is Acts, and that was written by Luke, and it has Pentecost, the beginning of the church, and how the apostles spread the good news, and people became Christians. New churches started. Sometimes Christians were persecuted, like thrown in jail, and it tells about Paul's missionary journeys. Then we have the letters. There are 21 letters in the New Testament, and some, they're not terribly long, some are pretty short, but they're written by different people again. But Paul wrote 13 out of 21 letters, so he cared so much about these early churches and early leaders. He wrote to them too, to try to help them. So we have 1st and 2nd Corinthians to the church in Corinth, and before that, Romans, that Paul wrote to the church in Rome. Galatians, Paul wrote to the church in Galatia. Ephesians, Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus. Philippians, to that church. Colossians, to that church. Thessalonians, to that church. And then 1st and 2nd Timothy, because Timothy was a good friend of Paul's, and he went with Paul on some of his missionary journeys. Then Titus, Paul wrote to Titus. Philemon, he knew Philemon. Hebrews, we don't know for sure who wrote Hebrews. And then the last ones were written by others. James was written by James, the brother of Jesus. 1st and 2nd Peter, written by Peter. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John were written by John, so all these were written by apostles. And Jude, he was the brother of Jesus and James. The very last book is the book of Revelation. It was written by John the Apostle, and that's very interesting, that talks about how God wins over Satan. Okay, so there's so much in the New Testament, but just learn what you can about it, and because the people that wrote it cared so much about these early Christians, and it speaks to us today about how to live as Christians. So, have a good week, and also, here's the coloring page if you got the papers, the love paper, and a coloring sheet with a big heart. So learn what you can.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts and the letters of Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians and Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Hebrews and the book of James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd, 3rd John,